All right, let's see. It is 7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Nice looking Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. And one of our favorite things, I think, Robbie, you would agree with me on this. I'm speaking for both of us without meaning to, but I think you would agree that when we speak to storytellers, it is one of our most fun things, right?
Oh yeah, it certainly is.
Where's your microphone?
I just love it.
There. So while I love that, our next guest is more than that. You know why? Because he's also a guy with an expertise in the Beatles.
Yeah.
Now, why is that important to me? Don't ask me why. It is one of those things that, you know, whenever you decide that you like something and you kind of become passionate about it, and then you get older and you say, why was I so passionate about that?
Yeah.
It doesn't change it. You're still passionate about it, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about Beatles, I think, a little bit. I hope I'm right. I hope this is the guy we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Kenneth Womack is on the
right.
phone. He's a professor of English and integrative, how do you say that word, Robin? Arts, and the associate dean for academic affairs at Penn State University's Altoona College. He's the editor of interdisciplinary literary studies as well. He's a researcher, an award-winning author. His new book is called Playing the Angel, a chilling novel of suspense. And he's on the phone. Kenneth Womack. Good morning, Kenneth.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good. And Robin says you were going to come into the studio. What happened?
Well, I'm actually not very far away. I'm over at the College of Central Florida getting ready for a big Beatles talk at 11 a.m.
You're across the street?
I am across the street, but I had to do a sound check.
Okay, so you're giving a talk on the Beatles today?
I am. 11 o'clock. It's about the origins of the band. Of course, this is a great big 50th anniversary month coming up upon us.
Yeah, 50 years since what? The Ed Sullivan show?
50 years since the Ed Sullivan Show, which was on February 9th, 1964.
Oh, wow. And the kids are interested in the Beatles, huh?
The kids adore the Beatles. When we run a Beatles course at Penn State, those things fill up. No matter how big the classroom is, whether it's 25 or 95, fills up in a single day. Did
you ever see the Beatles in concert?
I did not. I'm not a first-generation fan. I guess I'm happy to admit.
Right.
I've seen Paul McCartney 5 times, though, and I am a big fan, but also, I guess, a lifelong scholar in a lot of ways.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, we'll get back to that, because you're talking about something. You know what? It serves no purpose in my life at all, other than to talk to guys like you. Well, except to say that I get, well, we'll talk about music in a second. Let's talk about the book first. Playing the... So is there... Well, here's a connection. Is there a connection between your interest in... Obviously, in music in general, I'm guessing it's not just about the Beatles for you, and the fact that you're an author. Is there a connection?
I suppose on some general level there is. They're both art forms, and music informs my novels very, very deeply. I often make a lot of allusions, sometimes very veiled, sometimes on the surface, to sound and music. It's part of the ambiance of any work. So certainly there's a little bit of jazz and blues in Playing the Angel. Okay.
So have any of your books been made into movies, or is that something still to come one day? Because music will play an important part, right?
My first novel has been optioned, so I know there's some folks working on it somewhere deeply in secret in some cave somewhere.
Oh, no, not in a cave.
So there has been some interest. I do write sort of cinematic novelscapes, I suppose. Playing the Angel is certainly that way. It's very deeply rooted in New Orleans, so there's a certain kind of French Quarter ambiance that it has.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, so tell us the storyline of Playing the Angel.
Well, it's a bit of me playing a game, and the game is superhero-dom. It's about the world of superheroes, although I invert the mythology, and my superhero is a woman. She is a graduate student at Tulane, and she finds herself stranded in the city during Hurricane Katrina. And in the aftermath, she refashions herself in order to make money as a refugee as one of the living statues that exist, of course, in the French Quarter. By day, she's the Statue of Liberty, and by night, she's the Angel of Mercy.
That's pretty awesome.
By the way, Robin is what did you say? A female hero or something like that? What'd you say? Robin is my female hero.
I don't have wings.
Robin has rescued me many times.
Well, I hear heroic qualities in Robin's voice, so I'm not surprised. Of course, with all superheroes, my superhero has a backstory. She has a dark story that she's trying to overcome. So many superheroes, whether they're Batman or Spider-Man, are trying to overcome adversity. And mine does so by being the angel of mercy. She sleeks around the French Quarter doing good deeds.
Oh, man. I'm glad you finished that sentence that way. No, I'm not really glad. You could have done it the other way, too.
But she had her trials and tribulations, too, because there was a person who was not so nice.
Right. She her dark backstory, and it's nothing too bad to give away because the mystery is what's important. She was raped by a National Guardsman, rather in an anonymous fashion, so she doesn't know who he is. And for much of the novel, she avenges her attack by seeking him out and trying to figure out who this fellow is and bringing him to justice.
And in the meantime, she's out there helping others.
That's right, the way it should be.
So she's sort of a vigilante then.
Yeah, that would be a better way to put it. Yeah, she's a vigilante hero, but I guess that's the commonality, right? Whether you're Batman or Superman, there's an official side where they tend to connect with law enforcement, but at the same time, they function as vigilantes outside the boundaries of law.
Oh, wow. Let me see in my notes here. This is one of those rare opportunities for us to talk to an author before we've read the book, and I guess it was just a mix-up in the mail or something. So the book that we're talking about today is obviously different than the book that got you across the street at the college.
Right. I'm here strictly in a Beatles capacity.
And you wrote a book, or co-wrote a book called The Long and Winding Road or something?
Right. I have 4 books. One is forthcoming this summer. It's called The Beatles Encyclopedia Everything Fab 4. And it is mammoth. It is about 500,000 words with illustrations. But Long and Winding Road is a textbook I wrote for my courses. I say textbook, the trade sort of paper. What I like to believe is a fun read about the Beatles' art and how they made the music that made them famous.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Have they made music that did what?
But the music that made them famous, that used their legacy.
Now, I discovered the Beatles pretty much after everybody else did, even though I'm old enough to have discovered them in the beginning. I mean, I knew of their existence, but I didn't really find myself drawn to their music until their later music. And then I went back and kind of rediscovered their first music. And I even listening to it now, I think I know why. Their later music was more artsy or more colorful or more experimental, I guess you could say.
I would agree with that. And what you just said really captures why I'm fascinated by them. The aspect of them being able to go from those primitive early songs to their later years is really remarkable.
Did they write those extremely early songs, or did somebody else write them for them?
Oh, no, they wrote the early tunes. They were always their chief songwriters. But that leap from 1963 to 1969, to me, is one of the great artistic journeys in all of art. It's almost unsurpassed.
It is, but I feel like we're not being fair to your book right now because we jumped a track here, but we'll get back to it. But I've often thought that the explanation for that might be in part because they made so much money, it didn't matter anymore. They didn't need to write what the people over them were saying because there was no longer anybody over them. They became in charge. And so then, especially somebody like John Lennon, who was very artsy in the first place, would say, you know what? I'm not going to write those pop songs that they keep, those formula songs. I'm going to do something different.
That is a very astute way of looking at it, frankly. I mean, the idea that for them, great wealth became a liberator. They really didn't need to write pop music. In fact, it was John Lennon who said, we could put out anything and it would be a hit at a certain point. And there's a lot of truth to that. And that did give them the freedom to not have to travel the road, to cease going on concert tours.
Yeah, but Paul, yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Paul kept him in check a little bit, and here's why I say that is because while Paul kind of was sticking to the formula a little bit, not that he didn't have some great songs, and I wouldn't imply that for a second, but John would be daring enough to do something like Revolution Number 9, which everybody wanted excluded from the White Album. But later on, when he was with Yoko, they decided to do the Two Virgins album, where it was nothing but experimental, and it failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, as you said before, it was the Beatles corporate name that made things possible.
Yeah.
When you were studying the Russian language and literature at the Moscow Institute of Communications, did that help you in your quest to writing such a versatility of stories like Playing the Angel and then going on to writing the works biographing the Beatles?
Well, that's a very I never considered that way. I just lived in the Soviet Union for a while, and you kids out there, especially abroad,
Boy, you're breaking up so bad, Kenneth. You're right across the street. We get calls from Australia that are better than this. Can you stand outside or something and maybe just shout across the street? We'll be able to hear you. Let me just real quickly just reintroduce our guest. Kenneth Womack is on the phone, and actually he's over at the College of Central Florida getting ready to do a presentation about the Beatles, and he'll give us information about that in just a second. But he's also mainly on the phone to talk about his book, Playing the Angel, which is a novel of suspense, and his protagonist, I guess you say, is a lady named Tiff, and she works as a living statue. There you go, in the French Quarter in New Orleans. So, Statue of Liberty, by the way, which in this town means someone's trying to get you to buy some insurance, or get your taxes done.
Right, get your taxes done.
But you know what? Is there something just between us guys? You look at a lady posing like that. I mean, there's something intriguing because she's not saying a word, and you know she won't talk to you if you try.
I've thought a lot of it. What is the fascination with living statues? Is it the quietude? Is it trying to see if they'll screw up?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure, but yeah, in her mind, she uses mathematics. She does math problems to keep herself concentrating on something other than being still.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. And did you interview anybody that does this? And is that really something?
I did. One of our former faculty members at Penn State had the experience of working as a living statue. And I remember vividly thinking, oh, gosh, there's another book.
Oh, that is interesting. I've often wondered, why are we allowed in this society to have naked statues anywhere and everywhere, showing genitals and everything, right?
Yes.
But if you had a living naked statue, you'd be arrested.
You would.
Especially if it was a he.
That's a wonderful corollary. My wife talks about the show Family Guy, and she said if they did it with living people, it would be X-rated. Yeah.
Yeah.
But somehow you reconfigure something, and it's okay.
Now you get a young man who looks exactly physically like David, right? Put him on a pedestal, paint him gray, and have him stand there naked. He's off that pedestal.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as the police figure out that's not granite, he's off of there. Yeah, all right, let's go to the phone. You've got a caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I'd like to ask the author how he decided to select a National Guardsman as the individual who raped this character.
All right. Good question.
Very thoughtful.
Thank you.
And I did so. That's very thoughtful indeed. I wanted to have an official representative, someone who is kind of the opposite of my character, who is supposed to do good but doesn't. And I don't want to say too much more because I would start to give things away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and sometimes, to be honest with you, when we actually have a news story, a real news story about a priest, let's say, or like you say, somebody who shouldn't be doing these things, and they are in the news because they have done these things, I often will get calls saying, well, why did you have to mention his occupation? Mm-hmm. Why did you have to mention that he was with the Marines or that he was a priest? I've had that call many times in the course of my career doing this. And I'm trying to imagine if anybody would qualify. Say a carpenter was caught, having a sexual affair or something with someone. I don't know. I think it strikes a chord with people because while it's probably true 90% of people, 99% of people are probably good regardless of what their career is. You're right. When you have a certain career that you're expected to be walking the straight and narrow, it has a different effect on us.
That is an interesting observation, and it's so true that, especially in America, we're very much identified by position and vocation.
Yeah. So it was a fair question, and I think I know where she was coming from. As a matter of fact,
was the police not happy with her? Is that why they tried to trap her?
No, but it does put her, as you can imagine, later in the novel in an interesting place where she is, as you said, trapped between the official culture that she's not a part of and the part of that official culture that does want to bring wrongdoers to justice. So it does create a very interesting juxtaposition.
So in writing the book, were you there? And I mean that in a figurative sense. I mean, were you sucked to your own story?
I always do get sucked into my own story, and I start to identify with characters. Sometimes one more strongly than others, and I really am a part of that world until it disappears and I'm done with the book.
And there are so many stories about New Orleans and the history and the different types of religious sects there and everything. Did you actually go there to do your research?
No, in this case I didn't. I grew up there for part of my
life.
I lived in New Orleans, and so it became a key part of the story for me. A number of the scenes, including one in particular at the St. Louis Cemetery, are really pulled right out of my childhood. One of the most frightening moments I ever had walking around that cemetery with the above-ground crypt with my mother, and it was at night around Halloween, and she was quite vicious. She would point to the crypt and say, "Look, they're bones."
Oh, my. Oh, that would be real scary.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Frankly, I'm still not over it.
I don't blame you.
We had there was a flood over in Crystal River. It's not unusual really for that area when there's a storm in the Gulf. And there's a cemetery right near the office of a lady I know in real estate. Is it real estate she works in? And there's a cemetery right across the street. And she said that the water literally caused some of the coffins to float out of there. Mm-hmm. Which was weird. I always thought they were in concrete. I don't know how that is, but anyway. So that must have been weird. All right. So this book is called Playing the Angel. Now today, if somebody is a Beatles fan and they want to hear what you have to say, what do they need to know? What time are you starting? And is there a fee? How do you do this?
It's the best fee you could ever have. It is free and open to the public. It's at 11 o'clock at the Arts Center on campus. Free and open to the public, and plenty of good seats. Should be a big crowd, and a lot of people excited to talk about the Beatles.
And what is the name of the event?
My talk is called Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That sounds like fun.
It's in the auditorium, the Fine Arts Center, which I believe is Building 4, and it'll be a lot of fun. It won't be too long, about an hour, and then you can get on your way to lunch.
Oh, wow. So real quick story. I'll bore my listeners because they've heard this before, but I wanted to see if I could meet John Lennon when I was much younger. Obviously, he's been gone already for a long time. And I stood in the same place where he was eventually killed. Of course, it was years earlier. And I stood with a friend, and there was only one other person there, and it was a young lady. And I knew that's where he lived because I lived in New York, and I always knew where John Lennon lived. So I decided to stand there one day just to wait for him and with a friend. And the young lady who was there all the time said, he'll be out. He's always out. And so he did. Him and Yoko came out, and he whistled for a cab. And he looked back at us, and he said, I'll be back. And then he got in the cab with Yoko and left. That was it. So I never said a word to him, but there was my brush with greatness story. But the girl said, he said he'll be back. He will be back. So why don't you wait? And I said, nah, we decided... we saw him. He doesn't owe us anything, Mm-hmm. I pay $5 per record. I'll go listen to the record. He gave me what he owes me, which is the record, Mm-hmm. So Anyway, it's kind of interesting. Fame is an interesting thing, and I guess Beatles would be considered ultra famous. So
I suppose so. And have you been back there to that location after his murder?
yes, I did go back. Yeah, I don't know. We were going to go back when Robin and I went a couple years ago, but we didn't have enough time. We had a business thing we had to do up in New York. So that was mine. And I've never seen the Beatles either in concert. Although I did see George Harrison in Atlanta one time, from the back. Had the worst seat in the house, I think. Yeah. Did we lose you,
Hello.
Kenneth? I think we lost him.
Oh.
Well, Kenneth Womack has been our guest. He is the author of Playing the Angel, and he's across the street from us right now over at the College of Central Florida, and he is giving a presentation on the Beatles called Yeah, 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 which is not related at all to his novel, Playing the Angel. So, Kenneth, are you there? I think he's absolutely gone. I think he's totally gone.
I think so, too.
All right, so Playing the Angel, I guess you would go find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and probably the normal places where you would get a book. And if you're going across the street to meet Kenneth, it starts at, what do you say, 11 o'clock?
Yes, 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock to hear about the Beatles.
And he's got a website, KennethWomack.com.
Kenneth Womack, Womack.
Yep.
Kenneth, if you're listening, we lost you. We don't
Yeah.
hear you at all. But anyway, thank you for being on the air with us today. And if you're listening to the recording after the fact, then you'll know at least we did that. We will take a little break, and we'll be right back. Joe Reckel is here. He's ready to talk to us about controlling the damage that may have happened to your house when it got really cold the other day.
Yeah.
Or when it gets cold tonight. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday.